all expected back for next.
Against the Bulldogs, they'll win that then.
But still, they're coming back from injury.
Welcome to another episode of the JBK Show. I've got Nick beside me, Jaden off the bench. Big week of footy, a few upsets, but the talk of the town was the New South Wales and Queensland Origin teams being announced. Now, a few surprises.
I mean, I forgot how big the Origin team selection was. No one talked about anything else Sunday and Monday besides Origin. And you think, okay, there were some good games on the weekend, but everything was about team lists, who got selected, who didn't get selected. And big thing coming out for us too.
Massive news for primetime.
Everyone put their team lists out for the weekend.
All the big podcasts.
Fox Sports, Bloke in the Bar, they all
Saw
put
Braithen
team lists out.
Astor's projected team list.
We were the only podcast and show to put Tavita Pangai Jr. in our projected team list. Now everyone came out and said, why is he getting picked?
No, they were laughing at us in the comments. I'll bring the comments up. They were laughing at us.
Why would you select Tavita Pangai? What's he going to do? Who's laughing now?
No, it's not who's laughing now. I just think, what I think is Brad Fittler watches the show, and Brandy probably watches the show, and he said, look, I agree, Tavita Pangai Jr. could be dangerous off the bench, and they put him in the starting team. I thought maybe he would go in and take that Daniel Saifidi spot.
Well, our reasoning was they need size. They're lacking front rowers with RCG out.
Yeah.
They needed size. They needed someone that's a bit of a mongrel, and they picked Tavita Pangai Jr.
He's an enforcer. You see how many metres he ran for over the weekend?
Yeah, he had a game.
220
They would have whispered in his ear and say, you're playing for an Origin spot.
Yeah.
You're playing for an Origin spot. But he can be a disruptor in Origin. We've had the pleasure of having Data's dinner with him. He came over for a barbecue. He's actually a legend of a bloke. Congratulations to Tavita Pangai Jr. and the Fox from the Bulldogs getting back into the squad. But like I said, I'd say big surprise selection as well. Luai getting picked as 6 over Hines. I think Hines at 14 is a waste of a spot.
It's a waste of a spot because what's he going to do off the bench? He's not going to come on as a forward, so that kind of negates the whole bench spot.
Well, he said he's prepared to come on as a 13 in the middle as well.
But then you're really missing out on what his best qualities are, which is him playing as a half. So why would you bring him off the bench? You're not going to bring him out at hooker. They said Coruscant's playing 80. So where do you bring him in? Another shock as well, Hudson Young starting.
Which we also had in our team as well.
But not many people had Hudson Young playing at all, but he's actually starting. And they've got Cameron Murray coming off the bench, which is another good move, I think, because Murray's a better middle than he is a second rower.
And he'll provide some impact off the bench for the Blues for sure.
And then the Queensland team, they've made some big selections. Kailyn Ponga not getting selected. They put Reece Walsh at fullback. He's the most informed player, but no one thought that was going to happen. Xavier Coates misses out. Kurt Capewell misses out. And Dane Gagai. So that's not really Queensland-like.
What happened to the Queensland loyalty? I would have thought that Kailyn Ponga, off the back of what he did last year, has done enough to get selection for life. He basically won him the series last year.
It was that
second half that he had in Game 3 last year, I was like, okay, he gets picked every time. And it's a shame because Reece Walsh is the best fullback in the comp currently. He's in the best form out of any fullback in the comp. So I'm glad that he gets a start in Origin, but if you're Ponga, I think you're feeling a little bit dirty because if you're playing this week in first grade, that means you're available to play for Origin.
I mean, we'll get into who's going to win probably next week, but on face value, those team lists, who are you taking?
I'd say New South Wales has fielded a stronger team.
Okay. I've taken New South Wales. Yeah. I think they won't win in a sweep, but they'll probably win 2-1. Jaden?
Yeah, I take New South Wales. I think that game 1 in Adelaide is the game because everyone else is going to hold their home games. Mm-hmm. But the choice of no Kailyn Ponga I was mind blown when I saw no KP in the team.
Adelaide, why? Why put it in Adelaide for?
They've done that. They did that in 2020, and they must have an agreement with the government over there. I don't know. No, I don't think many people from Adelaide will enjoy the State of Origins as much as we would. But
I think people in Adelaide might not be able to name 10 players playing.
Yeah, it's
how would you do it though? Considering there's 2 teams.
I think that
the
team that won the series gets to defend it, and they get their first game in their state. So if you win the series, maybe you go off a certain date, maybe go off this year. You win the series, then you get 2 Queensland games, for example.
Or do what they used to do and just alternate. One year Queensland has 2 games, another year New South Wales has 2 games. It makes the most sense.
But just touching on that, I want to reiterate, Damien Cook, I feel like everyone's saying, he was hard done by, they should go with 2 hookers. I think Api Koroisau has been the better hooker. In a West Tigers team, he's still leading from the front. He's still a quality hooker. And at Origin level, he's the best hooker in the comp.
There'll be 2 hookers in Game 2 for New South Wales. They'll bring Cook back in, I'm confident, because
I think Cook could provide that impact off the bench. That's what Queensland do when they bring Grant on.
Origin's way too quick of a game to play 80 minutes as a hooker. And you saw it in game 1 last year where Damien Cook was struggling to get to the rocks in the 70th minute, 80th minute because there was only one hooker and he expected to play all game.
Well, that's all the more reason why Nico Hines, I feel like, should have just been starting if you were going to pick him and either leave that bench spot for a second hooker or another forward that's going to be buggered in the middle. But just to reiterate, prime time, the show, our show, pick Tavita Pangai Jr. getting picked, pick Hudson Young being picked, and we appreciate Freddie and Brandy and the selectors watching the show.
And to anyone that said we have zero ball knowledge, check yourself.
Yeah, maybe one of the greats of the game, Freddie Fittler, agrees with our knowledge. So, I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt. But Jaden, what's our fan question for the week?
Fan question of the week comes from Danny Hanna, and it is, why don't other codes try and implement a state of origin?
I don't see the A-League implementing a state of origin just because not enough people actually watch the A-League. When you look at the state of origin, it's one of the most watched games. Game 1 is one of the most watched games in the Southern Hemisphere, along the lines of the AFL Grand Final, the NRL Grand Final. It's massive. The whole country stops and watches it.
It's very easy for fans to say, why don't other codes do it? But it's one of the hardest things to do. It's an all-star game. It's essentially an all-star game where the stakes are at the highest that any sport could have.
Well, I think the AFL did have an origin at one point.
They did have an origin. I think it was the VFL versus every other state in the AFL.
See, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work because you're not really that connected.
How could I be passionate for a state like Adelaide?
Yeah.
Or I'm going for WA. If the AFL are going to do a state of origin, do a Victoria versus WA, or do a Victoria versus Queensland.
The talent discrepancy would be too big. VFL would have all that. Victorians would have too much talent.
Well, that's going to bring a rivalry. Queensland were down and out in 2020. They still won.
It's rugby league is very lucky that they've only got 2 states that play rugby league. That way, you can actually get that kind of rivalry. And if it was that easy, why are people putting shit on the AFL for not doing it? The NBA would do it. The NFL would do it. It's not an easy concept to do.
They do an East versus West in the NBA.
And it's called the worst thing in the NBA that year.
Yeah, now
everyone hates
always,
the All-Star break.
It used to be very competitive. Now it's just players don't want to get injured and there's too much money on the line.
It's never been competitive to the effect of what New South Wales and Queensland Origin is.
Why is State of Origin in the NRL so competitive then? What makes it its thing?
It's lightning in a bottle and cannot be replicated. No other competition in the world can do it because it doesn't have the context of New South Wales and Queensland, play for where you're from, absolute hatred for another state.
When you think about it, they're not even getting paid that much. Say it's 30 grand a game, right? I mean, to go out there and kill yourself for your state, like you got to do it for the love of your state.
See,
you can't not.
If the AFL were to even try and do it, it'd have to be VFL Victorians versus the rest of Australia. But really, do I get along with people from Perth that well to hate it? It'd be just hatred for Victoria. I mean, they could
There's a lot of people that hate Victoria.
I mean, look, AFL copied NRL in Magic Round. I don't see why they wouldn't copy the NRL in an Origin. I mean, it's just another round to have. It's just another game to have where you could draw fans. I mean, if any competition in Australia could do it, it'd be the AFL.
Well, I don't know. I don't see any other code doing it. Not another code domestically in Australia anyway. But let's go over to our team of the week. Who's your team of the round?
I mean, it's an easy one, the Tigers. We've put shit on the Tigers consistently throughout the whole year.
And it's valid. We're not doing it out of, we hate them. It was, valid criticism.
I mean, I do hate the Tigers, but that's another thing.
Yeah.
But they won. They put 66 points on the Cowboys. Anytime you put 66 points up, I mean, the Cowboys, they were terrible. They were missing tackles. They were dropping off everything, line breaks. Valentine Holmes, I don't know how he got picked for Origin off the back of that game. But if you look at what the Tigers did, they've been playing well now the last 3-4 weeks. You've got to tip your cap to them. And they're my team of the week.
I think, they surprised a lot of people. 66 points is a lot of points.
11 tries.
Brandy was on Fox Sports sitting next to Scott Drinkwater, who was he must have been down in Sydney. He's come down, he's gone into the Fox Sports studio, and they're going over the overview of the game on the Sunday.
And Brandy
takes an absolute shit on him while he's sitting there and goes, the Cowboys were just woeful. They were embarrassing. How do you leak that many points? And as right as he was, poor Scott Drinkwater was like, yeah, I know, Brandy, it was tough.
You just wanted to say, please, can you shut up?
Yeah, I know, please.
Can you maybe talk about this when I'm not here?
Just to touch on the Tigers, so they had close to 34 minutes of the ball opposed to 18 minutes for the Cowboys and a 93% completion rate.
Yeah, that's crazy. When a possession skews that much towards one team, you can't win the game. You can't win the game. And credit to the Tigers, they needed that at Leichhardt. The fans would get up for it. My team of the week goes to the Parramatta Eels. I obviously tipped South Sydney. They're the informed team of the competition, and it was Indigenous round. I took an all-Indigenous multi. I had Latrell scoring. I had bloody Cody Walker,
Alex
Alex
Johnston.
Johnston. I thought they were going to get up for the game. Look,
I mean, they did.
They played well.
Cody
They played
Walker
well.
played really well. So
I
did
agree.
Latrell and Alex Johnson, but the Eels were just better on that day. And it was very surprising. I mean, Madison went down injured. They had a few things go wrong. Sean Lane wasn't there. And the Eels showed up and put premiership favourites, the South Sydney Rabbitohs, they put them down.
And it just shows that the Eels on their day, I think, can beat any team in the comp. They're not as strong as they were last year as a team, but I just think you catch the Eels on a good day and you're not playing good footy, you're going to get beat.
They're a team that should hopefully make the 8 and hopefully maybe cause some noise down through the finals.
Yeah, I agree. Who was your player of the round?
I mean, my player of the round was Tom Trbojevic. I called it 2 weeks ago. I said, the next 2 weeks, Origin's coming up. He's going to put in a good performance against the Sharks or the Raiders, and it happened to be against the Raiders. Tom Trbojevic, 3 tries, 4 line break assists, and put everyone to bed on whether he should play Origin or not. Yes, Campbell Graham was in form, but when Tom Trbojevic can score 3 tries in a game, on the back of what he's done in Origin, there was no way he wasn't getting selected.
He came out and said it's hard not to ignore the noise of people criticising your game, saying, you know, he's not up to the Origin level, he has to be injured, he must be holding back, his hamstring's not right. And he just said, look, I
didn't do it on purpose.
I didn't do it on purpose. It was the game I was playing. I wasn't holding myself back. It's great to have a game going into Origin, gives him confidence going into Origin. I think he deserves a spot, whether he was 100% healthy or not.
He
I
definitely
think
wasn't.
He gets first choice to be the Origin centre, and good on him.
I think I'll put him anytime try scorer for New South Wales, 100%.
Man, seeing what Toa did to Holmes and looking at the hammer, I don't think any Queensland centre is going to be able to stop.
I think the
Latrell
best
or
bet
Turbo.
for Origin is Latrell or Turbo, but I'm going to go with
I'd go
Latrell
both of them
to be
anytime.
player of the series. I go Latrell player of the series. He was missing, you know, obviously last year, a big loss for New South Wales. If Latrell probably plays last year, they don't lose the series.
What people don't realise are our centres last year were Burton and Staggs. They're getting replaced by Trell and Turbo, who are the 2 best players in the comp
When
on
healthy.
their day. Yeah,
Exactly.
So it's
I'm going to go to my player of the round, and you mentioned him. Stafford Toa.
He embarrassed him.
He treated
Valentine Holmes.
He
like a
treated
bitch.
Valentine Holmes like a child on the field. He was throwing him around. He's a young centre. To do that to a Queensland Origin player, and look at his stats: 2 tries, 5 line breaks, 12 tackle breaks. Like, obviously coming from nowhere in a underwhelming Tigers team to put on a performance like that, and the scoreboard showed it. Everyone was raving about him on Twitter and social media, deservingly so. He had a top game.
I mean, you saw vision before of him just pushing Valentine Holmes off. Valentine Holmes must have gone home that night and cried himself to sleep. How do you live with yourself after getting embarrassed like that?
No.
12 tackle breaks. That's a lot, man.
230 metres.
For a first grade game to have 12 tackle breaks, like that's probably the best game of your life.
I didn't think Val Holmes has been that bad defensively all season, and he wasn't like that in Origin. So to do that I think Val Holmes is one of the better centres in the comp.
And like you said, you reckon Latrell and Turbo are looking at that and going, I can't wait for Origin now. I'm about to have a field day.
Latrell's licking his lips. I'm going to be taking him every game. He's going to be a danger, especially if Hammer is his opposite number. Hammer hasn't been defending in the line all season. He's been cruising down at fullback. You're going to be in an Origin team defending in the line against one of the best players in the comp. Going to be a very difficult task.
With Fox outside him as well, that Indigenous brotherhood that those two have. I'm thinking that side of the field is just going to tear up Queensland.
Anyway. Take the whole left side anytime try scores. That's what I'm going to be doing. But looking over to the Roosters, they are in trouble. The Roosters are fucked. They have look. I mean, this week they got the bye, so they can obviously rest. But losing Sam Walker, first dropping him, then he's got a knee injury that he suffered at training and in New South Wales Cup. Manu's been out with injuries, niggly injuries. Jared Ria-Hargrave's been out with injuries. Who else?
Brandon Smith now out for, what, 8 weeks?
Victor Radley going and headbutting people, getting out 2 to 3 weeks at a time. They can't catch a break. It's in their lack of discipline, and they just haven't gelled together. Their chemistry in attack has just been off.
The Roosters are in big trouble. Not only are the injuries starting to pile up now, but their form is actually getting worse. They're the worst attacking team in the comp, which you never thought a team with Joseph Manu, Tedesco, and Luke Cleary, that would be the worst attacking team in the comp? No way. And now the fact that they've got Brandon Smith out injured, who was their marquee signing, and he hasn't been playing well either, so that just puts more pressure on them. Trent Robinson is one of the best coaches in the NRL, so I do expect the Roosters to get out of this and still make the 8, but it's just not looking good. I mean, they have the Bulldogs off the bye. That's a winnable game.
If they get Manu coming back, Hargraves and Sam Walker back into that team, they should win that game against the Bulldogs.
But does Sam Walker come in, or are they still disciplining him?
No, he has to come in. Like, that's enough. You need to... I understand maybe you were trying to send him a message and drop him like you did to Latrell, like you once did to Manu as well. But at the end of the day, you guys need to start playing a good brand of footy heading into the back end of the season. We're almost halfway through the season now. It's not like, oh yeah, they'll come good. I think they eventually will come good, but it's got to start now.
Looking at the stats, so in 2022, last year, Roosters after 11 games were 6 wins, 5 losses. This year they're 5 wins, 6 losses. They ended up finishing 2 points outside of the 4 last year.
Yeah, but they can go on the same run. But in saying
contextualize it.
They have scored the least amount of points this year as a team.
But you know that they can just switch it on.
That's why I'm not worried they can make the 8, but I'm saying the struggles last year aren't the same as the struggles this year. They've had much more movement in their spine, and they haven't been playing well. So that's where you go.
Can I also say, they struggled with injuries last year as well, throughout the whole season. But I reckon it's time to call out, you know, not having a go at Trent Robinson, but the times that the Roosters have been so successful, they've had absolutely stacked teams. Cooper Cronk, James Tedesco, Latrell Mitchell, you know, Manu, Brett Morris is in the team, Boyd Cordners. They've always been stacked. Now you've got a young half in Sam Walker trying to lead them around, a Luke Cleary that's been in and out of first grade and not at the top of his game over the last 2 years. Like, I think they're struggling from an attacking standpoint, even with the amount of players that they've, the star players that they have. And then has Cheese lived up to the hype? If you're judging on after 12 rounds, he hasn't at all. He's not living up to his paycheck.
They're not doing him any favours by bringing him off the bench now as well. If he's going to be a hooker, play him 80, let him get into shape, let him actually get some game time at hooker with his halves, with Victor Radley at lock, and let them just work through their challenges.
And to be honest, Suoliti, he was in talks to be the origin winger, the out-and-out origin winger. It was his spot to be won, and he hasn't had a good game since early on in the season.
I think that goes to show how good of a coach Bellamy is to get the best out of every one of his players. Like,
every year,
it happens every year. When a player leaves Melbourne, besides Cooper Cronk, they go out and they flop more or less. Yeah. Whereas when they're at Melbourne, they're the informed player in that position in the comp.
I'd agree. And as Melbourne haven't been as attackingly convincing as they once were, they still have Pappenhausen out, but they play the most consistent brand of footy compared to all other clubs in the comp. Yeah. Consistently and longevity-wise. But looking at a team that isn't as consistent, and I'd say one of the shittest teams in the comp over the last 5 years, up there with our Dogs and the Dragons and the West Tigers, the Gold Coast Titans.
They have now blown 7 leads this year. They've got a 43% win rate when leading at halftime. That's embarrassing. In 2023, the Titans have won 3 of 7 times when they've led at halftime. They've led at every game since round 3.
The thing is, I think they have the talent to be a good side. It's just they probably need to puzzle in a few pieces like a strong 7. Kieran Foran's been one of their best signings in a long time. When he's in the team, they look 10 times better. AJ Brimson also, if he's healthy, the Titans always look good. It's just chopping and changing around them. David Fafita's been great, and he's got an origin spot. But it's just the role players around them that just don't get it done. They don't know how to close out and win a game.
The thing with the Titans is they've got no problem attacking. They're one of the highest point-scoring teams in the NRL, but they can't defend. And defence, for me, is always a discipline thing. If they had a Wayne Bennett coaching their side, they'd be probably up there with the minor premiers with the Sharks and Rabbitohs. It's all a discipline thing. They can't hold a lead because they just switch off. So I think most of the blame has to go on the coach. Their players are playing well enough to win the games, but they're just bailing out late and they're not defending. They're leaking too many points in the second half. A discipline thing again. You can't do that and expect to win.
Disappointing for Titans fans if there are still many of them. But looking over to Kailyn Ponga, like we said, big omission from the Queensland Origin team. Reece Walsh plugs into fullback there. He's named to be fullback for the Newcastle Knights this week. He's going to want to have a big game.
Well, does that mean his 5/8 experiment's over?
I think the 5/8 experiment is over for Newcastle. Firstly, him defending in the line is a liability because of the head knock issues. He's getting too many concussions in the line. He came off for a HIA last week. Thank God he passed and got back on. But like I said, he's a liability if he's defending in the line. He's safer being at fullback.
Is Kailyn Ponga only being moved to fullback because of Origin? Are they preparing him for game 2?
I don't think Billy Slater says to the coach of the Newcastle Knights, listen, mate, do you mind moving him back to fullback so we can get him in there? It's what's best for the Newcastle team.
He's not saying it to the Newcastle coach. He's saying to Kailyn, hey, you haven't had enough experience at fullback this year. Then Ponga goes to O'Brien and says, play me at fullback or don't play me at all.
No, he's too much of a quality player. He could play at 6 all year and then go to fullback for the State of Origin.
Especially because
I just think the reason why he didn't get picked is because they are too worried about player safety. And look at last year's Origin, for example. Game 3 last year, 3 players get knocked out in the first 5 minutes. Selwyn Cobbo goes down with some friendly fire, collecting someone's hip. Then next to go down was Cameron Murray with a head clash, right? That looked brutal, came straight off. Straight after, Lindsay Collins runs into someone's lap. I think it was Daniel Tupou, caught his back. He was knocked out, struggled to get up, didn't know where he was. You're going to send Kailyn Ponga to play in that game with Tavita Pangai Jr., want to take his head off? If I'm Billy Slater, I'm going, all right, kid, listen, maybe just get some experience back at fullback, maybe play about 5 games without getting a head knock, and we'll bring you back into the team.
It's all luck, though. And if the American doctor, who has cleared Kailyn Ponga to play, says you're okay, you can probably cop a head knock and be fine, he should be playing.
Yeah, I reckon
it's a cop-out excuse.
I reckon he'd be filthy. You're right. I think it's a way of dropping him and getting Reece Walsh into the team. But if Reece Walsh isn't up to scratch for Origin, I think he's going to have a blinder and he'll surprise a lot of people. But Kailyn Ponga goes straight into the team if they're not happy with how the backs play.
What surprised me was Ponga's that he's not even an 18th man in that Queensland team. I think you have Tommy Dearden, an 18th man.
The thing is, they've given players with the bye a nod for 18th, 19th man.
It's like Campbell Graham was 18th man, but he wants to play for his club at the end of the day too. Like, if he's not going to play Origin, let him play for his club over the weekend. It's still 2 competition points to be won.
And then if they do their hammy at training or something, they'll just call him in.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you're right. They probably should be in camp at the least.
I feel like Kailyn Ponga is a bit hard done by there, but he does have to prove himself that he will be healthy at fullback for a long period of time. And hopefully he stops getting those head knocks because they are fairly dangerous. But each week we go through our NRL player head-to-head. Last week, who did we have last week?
I think it was Cameron Murray and Isaiah Yeo.
We had Cameron Murray up against Isaiah Yeo. This week, we're going with 2 halfbacks, 2 Origin halfbacks, Nathan Cleary versus Daly Cherry Evans. Just on face value, the way these two guys play, who are you taking?
I've always been a Cherry Evans guy, thinking he's the best halfback in the comp. But for the form this season, I think Nathan Cleary. Just on the back of those field goals, those 2 40-metre field goals in the clutch, with his kicking game, the way he controls the ruck, and having back-to-back premierships, the nod's got to go to Nathan Cleary. Yes, Cherry Evans has been better in Origin, but who was the Australian half? When Mal Meninga had a choice for Nathan Cleary or Daly Cherry Evans, he chose Nathan Cleary, and he'd know a lot more than me.
I'd say Daly Cherry Evans does far more for his team than Nathan Cleary does for his team. Daly Cherry Evans has been the sole, plays consistent footy for Manly.
Yeah.
As the 7, he's consistently been their best player with an injury-ridden Tom Trbojevic, with, Schuster in and out of his team as well. He's been the dominant half. And I think at Origin level, Daly Cherry Evans gets the better of him.
Well, he's a more experienced player, so you've got to maybe give him that in a nod. If you're going head-to-head, maybe he's got more experience. But who's got the better kicking game? Maybe Cherry Evans gives the nod to as well.
Who do you take, Jay, on face value? Before we look at the stats.
For my club team or for my Origin team? For my Origin team, I'm taking DCE. And I've said this before on the podcast. He's just a proven Origin player. He took that 2020 team of rejects to lifting the trophy solely because of his experience and his game management. Whereas Cleary doesn't have that yet.
At Origin level, sometimes Cleary can be... he doesn't go missing. I feel like sometimes his kicking game isn't always the best. He gets disrupted by how physical it is and how quick the game is.
Okay. Give me this. Who's got a better kicking game, Cleary or DCE?
Look at Origin last year before we answer that. Look at Origin last year when our game plan was to kick to Daniel Tupou. There wasn't a kick to Daniel Tupou. Our halves didn't get us in a position where we could put up an attacking kick to our target.
Cleary top shit for that.
How many times is Manly's best last tackle option kicking to Jason Saab?
Yeah.
Consistently. Well, when you look at the stats, Cleary scored 3 tries this year to Daly Cherry Evans 5. Try assists, Cleary 6, Daly Cherry Evans 9. Forced dropouts, Cleary 11, Daly Cherry Evans 7. So I think Cleary takes that one there. And 40-20s, Cleary 1, Daly Cherry Evans 2.
If you're going on tries, DCE had a game where he scored a hat-trick. So that's not really a consistent metric. Mm-hmm. And forced dropouts is probably what you should look most for at a half. That shows you when you're
try assists as well is fairly big, which Daly Cherry Evans wins as well. I think it's fairly even, and that's why both of them played 7 at the Australian level. Mal Meninga ended up giving a nod to Nathan Cleary. But at the end of the day, again, younger, who's the current face of the game, who plays a bit more consistently and has the championships to back it up, I would go Nathan Cleary.
I think you got to go Nathan Cleary because of back-to-back premierships, but I'm with Jaden. If it was Origin, I'm taking Cherry Evans. He's just been better in Origin. And just winning the last 2 out of the 3 series, he's been the better half, he's been the better player, and he's captain.
That's a fair point. Well, that's our top 5. No, sorry, that's our player head-to-head for the week. DCE versus Nathan Cleary. It's going to be a great Origin matchup. But moving over to our top 5. Each week we do our top 5. It's up on our social media at Jon-Bernard K on Instagram and TikTok. And you can also catch our tips and top 5s on Pickle Studios and at Picklebet over on Instagram. But Jaden, what's our top 5 for the week?
Top 5 for the week is the biggest Origin omissions.
That's right. So the top 5 players to miss Origin selection this year. Number 5, I'm going to go with Dane Gagai.
Big omission.
Why I say that is because I don't know how the Hammer is going to go up against a Latrell Mitchell. Dane Gagai has consistently stepped up when it comes to Origin level. And are there any other centres, out-and-out centres in the game that can defend against a Latrell, defend against a Turbo? I mean, Dane Gagai steps up during Origin all the time, and he hasn't let them down. And they've just bit the bullet and go, we're gonna try and blood a young guy.
But the thing is, Queensland are known for picking strictly on loyalty. They won that 8 series in a row on picking the same team, giving players that weren't in form at club level a chance at Origin.
Pick and stick.
Dane Gagai hasn't been in great form this year, it's no secret. But when he does play Origin, he's known to lift. And you think coming off a win, an Origin series win, they would try and give loyalty to players that won it last year. But Billy Slater is not about that.
Gagai's been part of the last 8 teams for Queensland.
Wow.
So,
and he's been a consistent, strong centre at Origin, whether it be taking an intercept or taking a good carry. So I think he's unlucky.
How often did you see the same centres play for Queensland? Will Chambers, Brent Tate was always consistently picked. Greg Inglis, Darius Boyd, where the Dragons were coming last and he was playing shit as a fullback, he would get picked on the wing consistently.
I think he's got one of the best try-scoring records in Origin.
In Origin history. So a surprise move there from Billy Slater.
12 tries in 21 games.
Yeah, wow. Who do you have for number 4?
At number 4, I'm going with Kurt Capewell, another Queenslander who was unlucky not to be selected. He's had a couple good Origins. I mean, the 2020 Origin where he filled in at centre, second row. Even last year, he's a quality second rower. I mean, I think Dave Fafita is a better player, but even like a bench spot for Kurt Capewell, you just think what he's doing with the Brisbane boys now, they're one of the top teams in the NRL. I just think he's another unlucky player not to make it.
I think he did enough last year as well to kind of cement his spot in the team. But, I mean, Fafita's in great form. I think a second rower that was hard done by and probably would have been my number 4 is Hamoli Olakau'atu. I think he's the best second rower in the comp.
I mean, he was in our projected Origin lineups and he was the most damaging player in the NRL for Manly. I think every time he got the ball, he's making 10 to 15 metres each run, carrying 4 or 5 guys with him.
Defensively, he's extremely strong as well. I'm surprised he didn't maybe sneak in a bench spot or even an 18th, 19th man.
I think Tyson Frizzell, yes, he's safe and he's a good player.
And Frizzell's been there before.
But I feel like Olakau'atu just offers so much more than Frizzell. He's more damaging. And frankly, he's just scarier.
I think
intimidation factor would have been a big key in picking Olakau'atu.
I think Freddie would have spoken to a few boys before the last round and said, "Hey mate, the spot's yours if you go out and prove it this week." Hamoli's stats last week: 23 of 28 tackles, 6 runs, and 2 penalties conceded. So he didn't have his best game against Canberra.
If he had gone on like a Siffer Talakai run, he probably gets picked. No, you're 100% right. That could be a massive factor.
And people called out his errors and maybe penalties that he gives away, which is another thing for TPJ.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Look at how TPJ went in terms of the round before Origin for 220 metres, and he was a menace. 60 minutes.
Am I allowed to say TPJ, or do I know him that well?
Yeah, I think we're on nickname basis with Tavita Pangai. Let's call him TPJ. We can say that. Number 3, I'm going with Campbell Graham. Stretch. Now, I think he was a bit hard done by. Again, one of the informed centres of the comp. He's playing career best footy for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. If the Fox isn't fit and healthy by one more round, Campbell Graham is the winger in the team.
That's why I don't think he's not a snub. It's more just unlucky that other players were healthy.
And it's not like he can have a bench spot. He was named 18th man. I think South may have been a little bit filthy. They don't want him being 18th man and not being able to play at club level for the 2 points. So he withdrew from the team, and he'll play this weekend for South.
He'll play for Rabbits, but the thing is with Campbell Graham, he hasn't played Origin before, so it's different to Dane Gagai, where he's done it before. He's not really that big of an omission because Addo Carr got dropped last year and played out of his skin and he's earned his jersey back. Tom Trebojevic, same again. Had a great game against Canberra on the weekend and earned his jersey, and he made selectors not want to not pick him.
Well, so Campbell Graham only gets in if someone's injured and Tedesco retires down the line, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you can't... When you've got generational players ahead of you, it's just unlucky. The same thing happened to Queensland players when they were going on their run, or Ben Barber couldn't get a run. Who else for, I think, the Cowboys? Matt Bowen couldn't get a run.
Yeah, okay.
It just happens.
Let's say, God forbid, Latrell Mitchell starts playing career worst footy and same as Tom Trbojevic, can't run on his hamstring anymore. Campbell Graham just slots
if it's
straight
an
in.
injury thing, he
Bar
slots straight
injury, you're picking Latrell and Turbo. If
Okay.
they're available, based on their resumes and what their potential can be, Campbell Graham will never get selected.
Campbell
at centre.
Graham's second leading try scorer in the NRL this year for a centre. Like it's an
Exactly.
impressive feat.
Look, very hard done by, and he's a great last tackle option as well.
They don't kick to him enough, Souths.
and he's very good defensively as well.
Strong defensive.
Well, I
centre.
think I've had some people call that out. They
Yeah.
said that he's actually not that good defensively. He misses a lot of tackles.
Yeah, they're Chris Georges, Matt George, the big Roosters fans.
Yeah.
A little bit
I mean,
biased.
I know they've just gone off stats.
Okay,
I believe the stats.
Okay, who do you have as your number 2 biggest snub?
Number 2, I'm going with Damien Cook. You spoke about him before. I thought he was a shoo-in at the least for a number 14 jersey. They had him and Coruscant alternate last year and the year before. You think, okay, South Sydney, top of the ladder. He's in career best form, Damien Cook. You think he'd at least be ahead of Opi Coruscant at the least. Him not getting the 14 jersey, I think, is one of the biggest snubs ever. I don't know how it's like that number
Well,
one.
Brandy tried to justify it by saying we don't want to play with 2 hookers, and we gave the nod to Api Coruscant. Queensland consistently pick 2 hookers because they know the pace of Origin. It's fast-paced, it's hard-hitting. You need that second hooker off the bench. I think that's where New South Wales are going to go wrong in game 1. To pick Nicho Hynes at 14 to try, you're going to play him at 5'8"? Where are you going to... What if Nicho Hynes doesn't even get on? What if he plays 6 minutes? It's a waste of a spot. That spot's better off going to Damien Cook. And I feel like this week with South, he's going to show why they missed out.
And you look at last year, or even years before, when Harry Grant comes on when the middle's tired, that's when he excels. That's why, even though he starts at 9 for Melbourne and he's probably the best hooker in the comp, they bring him off the bench because that's where he excels the most. Damien Cook would be similar. Bring him off the bench when the Queensland forwards are tired. Get the New South Wales boys on a roll-on. I mean, I think Fitler, you're an idiot.
And what's Api Coruscant's best beach sprint time? Do we know? Does anyone know?
We learnt the hard way last year in game 1 with 1 hooker, and game 2, game 3 they fixed it by picking 2 hookers. Like game 1 we picked Stephen Crichton as our 14, and I feel as if Nicho Hynes is going to have that same type of role playing because if Nicho Hynes comes on at 9, it is disgusting coaching.
Well, but James Graham came out and said, if you're picking a 14, why are you picking Nicho Hynes? Wouldn't Matt Burton be a better 14 who can cover centre? If Teddy goes down, you could put Latrell to fullback. Matt Burton straight in the centre. If a 5'8" goes down, Matt Burton can play there.
It's like
who's bigger and can play in the middle? Matt Burton. And he's played there previously. He played last year and he's done the job there in New South Wales. Nicho Hynes as a 14, yes, he did it well at club level with Melbourne, but he's played the last 2 years as a 7. I just don't think the pick makes sense, and I think that's valid.
Fitler made a mistake not starting Nicho Hynes, and I think he just wanted to save face by not selecting him at all.
Well, if you lose your job because you lose this game and it comes down to that pick, you deserve it. If you make the same mistake by picking 1 hooker and a 14 that's probably not the right pick as a 14, you deserve to get sacked. And we'll see at the end of the day. I don't know.
If Nicho Hynes gets 6 to 10 minutes this game,
It's a waste.
but New South Wales win the game, you're picking him for game 2.
You have to, yeah, you have to.
No, you pick a forward in case.
Nah, you don't change a winning team.
Yes, you do.
They wouldn't. I guarantee you they wouldn't.
If you're playing him less than 10 minutes, that's Jacob Arthur time.
Okay, well, let's go to number 1. Number 1 biggest snub for Origin is Kailyn Ponga. We touched on it earlier. This, again, what he did last year for Queensland, winning game 3, he was the player of the series for Queensland. It is the biggest snub. He's healthy, he's ready to go. He's going to be playing for Newcastle this week. Reece Walsh, yes, is the best fullback in the comp and he's playing the best footy as a fullback. But I feel like Kailyn Ponga has done enough to cement himself as the Queensland fullback so long as he's healthy.
We said this in the lead up to team list being released. Kailyn Ponga, yes, he had the head knock issues, and Reece Walsh was the best player in the NRL. But strictly what Kailyn Ponga did in Game 3 last year, he warranted selection. Billy Slater should have, of all people should know, the Queensland way. Pick players that have performed well and done the job. Kailyn Ponga is easily the most unlucky player. I know I said Damien Cook was, but Kailyn Ponga, I think will he be in the team for game 2 or 3?
Based on just teams, I'm weighing up team versus team. New South Wales win game 1. Latrell and the centres and our outside backs will be too strong. And they'll have mass changes in the Queensland team. Ponga comes back in. Felice Kafusi will come back in.
Xavier Coates
probably Xavier Coates. They probably strengthen the bench up a little bit more. I think that's the way it's going to go down.
An honourable mention, Xavier Coates. I thought he was a shoo-in as well, but Talangi got the nod over him.
Well, there we go. That's our top 5 biggest mishaps for Origin selections this week. You can check out our top 5s at our socials, at Jon-Bernard K and at Picklebet over on Instagram. Nick, AFL, You've been pretty spot on with your Collingwood picks.
Everyone loves my Collingwood picks. AFL Week 11. Collingwood have an easy one this week. Collingwood versus North Melbourne. Now, North Melbourne last week just had their coach
What are they,
walk
$1.10?
away. I think they're $1.06.
Jeez.
Still worth the bet.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a smart punter, take Collingwood at the line, and obviously Nick Dacos for 30-plus disposals. He didn't get 30-plus last week, but he got 27.
I heard he's suffering from leather poisoning. That's what.
What's happened to him?
He's got too many touches of the ball.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, too many disposals.
Speaking of North Melbourne, did you see what happened in the North Melbourne Swans game with the kick after the siren?
Lot of
or
controversy,
just
yeah,
before.
geez.
There was a interchange mistake with like 30 seconds to go in the fourth quarter, and North Melbourne were up by 3 or 4, and it gave Swans a kick in the goal square to win the game.
Sydney were trailing for the majority of that game and then just brought it back. They've been struggling this season.
They needed that win. Sydney Swans were struggling. After getting pumped by Collingwood, everyone thought their season was over. But this is the trend that's going on in the AFL now. Collingwood are getting that much better each week. Each week they're building on their wins. Beating Carlton last week, they were up by 35 points at halftime. The game was over. No team in the competition right now is competing with Collingwood. The flag players are running wild. But
You're going to say that every week.
looking at other teams in the AFL, Richmond coach Damien Hardwick steps down, citing
All these
burnout.
coaches are resigning.
Alistair Clarkson last week steps away from coaching, says he's going to take a break. He might not return. That's now 2 coaches in 2 weeks that have stepped down in the AFL. They've got a coaching crisis.
Dysfunctional clubs, maybe.
And Collingwood's still $4 to win to lift the flag.
Hammer
That's
that.
what they call
If you're
it.
getting $4 on Collingwood, take that and run.
Jeez.
But looking at AFL versus NRL again, has the AFL taken over the NRL in terms of more scandals and being in the headlines more?
What's a scandal? A coach resigns. It's not that big of a scandal. I think, Kailyn Ponga in a bathroom is a bit more of a scandal than that.
But they've had DeGoey last year. They've had Bailey Smith last year. Now they've got coaches stepping down because of racism and other things. Another coach stepping down because of burnout. Who knows if that's because of something else?
Yeah.
They've been more consistently in the headlines. I think NRL players are on their best behaviour now.
Weigh it up. This year, there has not been many NRL scandals. I think players, specifically in Sydney, know what the do's and don'ts are. Look who's getting trouble these days. It's Paul Kent. It's the people calling out the NRL players.
That's the worst NRL headline.
If we're judging a code versus code here, the AFL has had more scandals and the NRL boys are on their best behaviour.
I think, and that's usually, historically, everyone says the AFL's better at covering up their stories and they don't want the headlines, they don't want that limelight. But the NRL now, I think, have been on their best behaviour, whether it be Lord Valandy's keeping everyone in check.
Mate, they're keeping it PG until Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas.
Once Vegas comes around.
I've heard good word Vegas is done. I've heard it's going to cost a fair bit, maybe close to 10 million, and they're looking at maybe a big artist. These are the 2 artists that I've heard, okay? Lady Gaga and Pink to perform in the NRL in Vegas.
Nothing says rugby league like Lady Gaga. And
Lady
Pink.
Gaga's a bit past their prime. She did the Super Bowl about 6 years
Is it going to be a
ago.
halftime show?
Hey, I don't know, but geez, let's get an Ed Sheeran or something down there. I think they maybe got to do with someone with the Vegas residency, but that's what I've heard. Take it with a grain of salt.
Better than the Australian version of AC/DC that they normally get.
Yeah,
at
that's
the
very
NRL
true. It's
Grand
better
Finals.
than Meatloaf, maybe,
Yeah.
for the AFL Grand Final. But let's go to our tips for the week. It's a shortened round this week, only 5 games. Jaden, what are we tipping this week? Again, if we keep a score update, loser of the tips of the overall season, including finals, we'll have to get a full-body 40-year-old virgin wax on camera for content. This is between Nick, myself, and my dad. Now, it's a fairly tight race. Nick, you're leading us on 62 tips. I'm behind you at 60. Dad at 57. I don't know if he's hairy. He'll struggle.
Honourable mention to Rich for tipping a perfect round last week.
Tipped a perfect round last week.
That was a hard week
to
pick a
tip
perfect
the
round.
West Tigers, the Dragons,
The Eels.
and
Manly were
and
outsiders
Manly as well. I think hard round to pick a
I
perfect
think he was
round.
paying like 440 to 1.
Yeah, he usually gets on. He didn't get on this week. I don't know.
Rich, yeah,
Shout out to
he'd be-
Richard,
he'd be
that's
pulling
a-
his
that's a
chest
tough
hair
win.
out, mate.
Yeah.
No need for the wax. So round 1, we've got, Thursday night, we've got Dolphins versus Dragons.
Again, I think we're going to go Dragons, everyone around, but
I don't know. I was tossing
you're
between.
tossing between.
Only because the game's in Redcliffe. That's making me think.
Yeah, but I just think the Hammer not playing, Gilbert not playing, and the Dragons coming off the win last week. Yes, no Ben Hunt, but I think they have enough players to get a win against an understrength Dolphins.
Who's more important to their team, Hunt or Feeder?
Yeah, that's true.
Hunt's
Hunt's far more important.
And I think besides Cody Nicarima being at fullback, which I severely dislike,
And Felice is out, mind you, as well.
I'm going to take the Dolphins. I'm going to stick with it.
Okay, I'm going to stay with the Dragons.
Friday night, we've got Parramatta versus the Cowboys.
I don't think anyone can tip a team after losing by 60 points or conceding 60 points. So I'll take the Eels.
And with players out, with Valentine Holmes not there, I'm going to take the Eels.
Taumalolo listed at 22, so there's a chance he comes back.
Chance Taumalolo plays. I think the Eels are going to start building a bit of momentum. Have they lost many players apart from Paulo?
Madison's out.
Madison's out, Paulo's out, Jake Arthur's out.
I think Jake Arthur going over to Manly was a surprise. Nice little mid-season swip.
Mitch Moses always fires during this Origin period as well to put him in contention for game 2
I'm
or
taking
3.
Parramatta. That's Parramatta for all of us as well. Who do we got next?
Next game, we've got Warriors versus Brisbane.
Is this in New Zealand?
Yeah, it's in New Zealand. Napier.
Okay.
So not their usual home ground.
I'm not backing against the Warriors in New Zealand. I've learnt my lesson. The Wilds fans, they always get on us. They're playing some good footy. Brisbane, again, no Reece Walsh. I don't know if Adam Reynolds is returning or not.
Adam Reynolds is...
He's out.
He's named at 7, but they're missing Carrigan, Haas, Walsh, Cobbo, Flegler.
Yeah, that's a lot of players out for Origin. So again, I'm going with pretty much a full-strength Warriors team.
Warriors all round.
Did you see the Warriors during the week had Israel Adesanya down at training?
I did, yeah. Apparently, like the NRL, yes, they've been cracking down on the wrestles. So what do the Warriors do? Let's go get a wrestler in. And let's run through a conditioning session.
Let's get a stand-up striker in to come do wrestling.
It's cool. It is cool.
That's mad. An international UFC star coming down to the New Zealand Warriors facility, training with the players, getting a photo up.
The Warriors have had a couple good weeks. They've re-signed Tuivasa Sheckler. They got Tuivasa
Chanel Harris-Tavita returns home as well.
They're getting players come. They're building a big fan base now in New Zealand after not being there for a couple of years. Things are on the up.
Okay, yeah, so that's Warriors all round.
Next game Saturday is Rabbits versus Raiders. So obviously Origin stars Cam Murray, Jai Arrow, Latrell Mitchell, and Hudson Young all missing.
Yeah.
And Elliot Whitehead's missing as well.
That's tough. With Cody Walker,
I'm taking Cody Walker anytime try scorer.
Yeah.
Wyden's
still playing though. Again, he reluctantly withdrew from State of Origin. So I don't know. I think this is the toughest game of the round to pick.
Any team that
Cameron Murray as well. Straight away. Look, I think with Cherry Evans being out, Tom Trbojevic being out, that's the whole Manly team out.
When you have your spine out, fullback and
you got to think Kailyn Ponga is going to want to have a massive game being snubbed from the Origin team.
Gagai still in there.
Gagai playing as well, so I think it's an easy Knights pick here.
That's Knights. Or actually, no, Dad's gone Manly.
I've
gone Knights, but I think he's just trying to catch up.
He's trying to catch up. That's a desperation pick.
Worked last week.
Well, that's our tips for the week. Again, you can check out our tips at Pickle Studios on TikTok and at Picklebet on Instagram. We'll be putting our tips every week and out on YouTube at the JBK Show. So if you're following along live, subscribe. Looking at the NBA Finals, we got one team in there right now, a full sweep to the LA Lakers. The Denver Nuggets have cashed their ticket into the NBA Finals. Nikola Jokic getting the Western Conference MVP.
Yeah, I think it's a recent thing. Pretty shit award.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't win the NBA Finals, you don't get Finals MVP.
No one really cares about the conference finals that much. But LeBron being swept, that's alarming. No one saw that happening.
I think the GOAT conversation is over. Did Jordan ever get swept in the playoffs?
The same reason why if LeBron won this year, it wouldn't change the conversation. Him losing this year doesn't change it either.
There was a point in today's game where LeBron had the opportunity to shoot a game-winning 3 and opted to pass it out. That's it.
I'm not taking this. I'm not taking this LeBron disrespect.
There was also half-time come 30 points and LeBron 4 from threes and whatever.
The guy dropped 40 points.
I 100% agree, but why Lakers lost this series there was point in times in Denver they had a lead and they didn't show up in the fourth quarter.
It was that missed dunk which could have turned the whole series.
They couldn't close out games. He had an opportunity to go up by 1. He was standing at the 3-point line. There's maybe less than a minute on the clock, and he chose not to shoot the 3.
Take away the fact that he's LeBron. They were a 7th seed up against a 1 seed. That's as big of a landslide of discrepancy in talent as you're going to get. They had major changes at the All-Star break during the trade period. For him to get to the conference finals is a massive achievement. Anthony Davis had a shit game today. No one talks about that. Why does he get a pass?
I know, and LeBron dropping 40 and people are still pointing fingers at
the end of the day, though, it just comes down to Jokic and Murray were 2 better players. They outscored the Lakers. They were consistently better, and I think they go on to win the NBA Finals from here. LeBron, in the post-match press conference, said he's going to take some time away, think about what he wants to do personally.
He's going to retire without a Kobe Bryant farewell.
I agree. I think he's just trying to dramatize his retirement. He won't retire, but they are teasing that he may be contemplating retirement. I mean, 20 seasons to go out in a Western Conference final isn't a bad way to go out.
I mean, I was pretty dirty that they lost. I wanted to see LeBron go to the finals. I understand why people dislike LeBron, but he's still one of the best players of all time. And he's neck and neck with Jordan. Whether you think he's better or not, he's neck and neck. And for them to lose in a sweep, I hate it because it just makes all these Jordan fans come out.
It'll fuel the fire.
And fuel the fire.
Well, if you're looking at the other series over in the Eastern Conference, Boston Celtics versus Miami Heat, another 3-0 series that no one saw coming.
Yeah, no. Boston Celtics are embarrassing themselves at this point. Miami Heat, look at it. They're an 8th seed. They lost to Atlanta Hawks in the play-in, then nearly lost to Chicago. You think, okay, they're one of the shittest teams in the East then. On the back of that, they beat Milwaukee, a number 1 seed. They take care of the Knicks pretty easily. And now they're up 3-0 on the 2 seed Boston.
Do the Celtics win tomorrow? Does it?
Yes.
Surely they don't get swept.
I'm in the minority here, but at $8.50, I'm putting money on Boston to take it out.
At 3-0.
First team ever to come back from 3-0.
If there's now after the Lakers, there's been 150 teams that have not come back from 3-0.
Okay.
It's 150-0.
But usually in those 150, it's a 1 or 2 seed up on an 8 seed. Not usually the other way around. This is an 8 seed up on a 1 seed.
They are outscoring the Celtics. Their role players are shooting threes. They're not missing points. And when you got players, Tatum not showing up, Jaylen Brown, they're not even scoring 20 points in a game that's a must-win.
But to make it more, like I said to you before off camera, if it was Penrith Panthers versus the Gold Coast Titans, 1v8, you'd take the Panthers 9 times out of 10. Yes, maybe that outlier game has happened 3 times.
isn't as big as that though in the NBA. Like it's, and the home court advantage for Heat tomorrow is massive.
I don't think they've dropped the game at home.
They
haven't dropped the game at home.
If Boston win this game, game 4, they go back to Boston. They win that game, that's 2 games. They just got to win 1 more road game. It's very possible.
Well, like LeBron said, take 1 game at a time. Didn't work out for him. But I do think Boston is in a better spot.
But the difference in that series, Denver was the number 1 seed up 3-0. Miami's the 8th seed. You got to still treat them as an 8th seed.
Okay. Oh, tomorrow, if tomorrow Celtics can get the win, it changes the whole dynamic of the series.
Momentum shifts. They go back to Boston.
People will be doubting it for sure that Miami might be the first team to drop a 3-0 lead. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's interesting. Something to keep an eye out for. You can also keep an eye out for an announcement coming on our socials. Big announcement. We have never teased an announcement before, so if we're teasing it, it means it's something big. So it's
huge.
Tune into Picklebet's Instagram and Jon-Bernard K on Instagram and TikTok as well.
If Heat win tomorrow and sweep Celtics, who's winning the final?
Denver.
I don't see anyone.
But
the way
Miami
Jokic is playing, Denver's got. You're going up against an 8 seed. The way those two are playing.
That's obviously invalid based off what they've done in the playoffs, right?
Yeah. Fair enough. I just think it'll just come down to who's the better defensive team. Both of them can score points, as we've seen in these playoffs.
I think Denver's length would give Miami a lot of problems.
Yeah. Looking at tennis, the French Open, 2 big omissions. Nick Kyrgios said he has a foot injury, sliced his foot open during obviously a thing where he got held up and his Tesla got stolen from him, so he withdrew from the French Open. Nadal also out. Are we going to see these guys at Wimbledon?
I think this makes the French Open the most boring event of the year. Not only is it probably the worst tennis Grand Slam event of the year, now you're missing 2 big superstars in Kyrgios.
You're missing the king of clay on clay.
I mean, that means there's going to be a new French Open king crowned this year, and hopefully it's Novak Djokovic. I think he's actually coming into good form at the right time. I think he won an ATP in Rome. But Kyrgios and Nadal not playing, who really cares about tennis then?
Tennis is going to struggle in terms of superstars. Yes, they have a lot of international stars, but people flock to your Australian Opens and your French Opens and Wimbledon to see Nadal, to see Djokovic, to see Nick Kyrgios spray an umpire. And when these guys aren't playing consistently on tour, it's hard to sell tickets.
No, the French people are probably pissed off that their king isn't playing. But there you go, man. He's getting up there in age. This is what's going to happen. I think he actually came out and said, next year will be my last year. 2024
He said that he's contemplating taking all of 23 off so that he can have 1 fit year left on the tour. So start off with Australian Open in Jan 20.
So he has to have a farewell run.
If Novak wins a Grand Slam this year now, I think that's it. He's got the lead. He's not going to lose it.
Yeah, I don't see Nadal winning another slam.
Yeah.
Especially with like Carlos Alcaraz and these young guns coming through, who then, they're not better than Djokovic and Nadal at their prime, but now that they're aging, they're coming through and they can get those.
They can drop names to these people for sure. No, I agree. Looking over to football,
EPL.
Arsenal suck.
They suck. Bottled the league.
Is it like just a stereotype that everyone knew that they were going to do it?
Well, everyone was calling them out, saying that they were going to choke, and Man City. But I think they were up 8. They were 8 points clear with about 10 games to go.
8
For them-
points. 8 points clear with a game in hand with 10 games to go.
So 8 points clear, 10 games to go. You lose that. You choked. Everyone's saying, oh, but Man City have spent all this money. They're one of the most valuable teams in the world. It doesn't matter. You were in a position to win it. You choked.
We
Job.
were in the lead for 93% of the season as well.
And even just looking at the weekend, I didn't think Man City were going to be crowned champions till maybe, the 37th, 36th game. They lost on the weekend 1-0, and now Man City just get to celebrate on a random Wednesday.
Have we all just forgotten about the Arab money controversy that they're just paying players?
Didn't they overpay some team?
Nah, man.
did something come out?
Haaland coming in and valued at 180 million.
For 60 mil.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, in terms of a player of that quality coming through, like Man City should always be winning that league. Like
Well-
I'm a diehard Arsenal fan, but we've got youth in our team from our academy, like Saka.
Well, I just think
and-
it shows that what
Arab oil
having
money.
a foreign owner
Mate,
can
money
do
buys
to a
happiness.
franchise. Money does buy happiness.
Well,
you can't convince me
You look at
otherwise.
Man City, since they've had Al Mansour come in, Sheikh Mansour come in as the owner, they've won, I think, 7 Premier Leagues now. They've won 6 straight. That's for a team that's down in the gutters, not even competing with the top 5 clubs of before, now being the king and having teams look at you as, oh, they're getting 100 points in the EPL this year.
But let's actually look at the top performing clubs or the highest amount of foreign money coming in to Premier League.
Any soccer club,
I'd
really.
say any international leagues. If you look at the list, starting 8 here, LA Galaxy, 8.1 billion. That's pounds.
Yeah, that's pounds.
That's more than the Australian dollar. Chelsea in at 7, 10.5 billion.
I don't know, is that recently after they got sold?
Juventus, they almost ran into a bit of controversy as well.
don't know.
Juventus, 14 billion. I can't pronounce that team at all.
RB Salzburg and RB Leipzig.
Both in and around the 15 billion mark. Man City, $21 billion.
That's a fraction of what the next two are.
And then PSG, $220 billion. They got a bit of drama happening right now. With
Yeah, but look,
Messi.
they've got Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe.
And this one
to
is,
take
I
up.
think, the most surprising. Newcastle, $320 billion.
And they've just made the Champions League officially. So it shows you what injection of an Arab or, Qatari owner can do. Manchester United are rumoured to have a Qatari buyer buying their club. I think the fans, they would want that. You're just going to sign the best players. And then it makes you look at our domestic sports.
Well, I mean, Melbourne City is owned foreignly, is it?
Yeah, but they don't really get the same funding. They're not really direct. They don't care about them.
Or owned by foreigners.
Because no one cares about the A-League, so no one really looks at that. Would you want an Arab oil owner of an AFL and NRL club?
If you're telling me that an Arab owner could nick Politis to the Bulldogs, do it.
Man,
Do
imagine
it. I'd love an Arab owner to own the Bulldogs.
imagine Arab owner come in and buy an Origin team. So you've got the 2 Origin teams where players are getting millions of
At
dollars
the end of the
in
day,
game.
domestic codes don't have enough talent for tens of billions of dollars to come in for. Well, our salary cap is fucking 12 million.
Yeah,
what-
if
you know what I
that
mean?
for,
It's
for
pocket
30
change
for
to us.
35 players.
They probably spend that on
They
a private
spend that on
jet.
a bench player, maybe the third string goalkeeper. So I understand, you never get. There's no, unless it's just a hobby for some rich prince from Saudi to come buy a rugby league team. There's no way any Arab money is coming into an Australian domestic team.
What if they've seen the highlights of Origin? You're like, you know what? I'm bored. Let's go buy the Bulldogs.
Maybe they just invest to New South Wales Rugby League or Queensland Rugby League and they buy into State of Origin. That's the height of rugby league here, and that's probably the biggest and most watched thing. Maybe that could happen down the line.
Do you think, though, that it ruins the culture of teams?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's been that, issue with teams like Man City and teams like Manchester United.
They've got
complaining
fake fans.
that they've lost. That they've lost what the club truly means with all this money coming in and how commercial the teams have become and the fans that come and watch the games, which you can agree. But that's the game going global though.
But it ruins the sport. So like a team like Man City up against
Bournemouth.
a Bournemouth or like a Brentford who have actually gone pretty well this year. It just makes the competition so lopsided.
Well,
Yeah,
because
but it's like going to an NBA game. You go to crypto.com arena to go watch the Lakers play. Who are you seeing in the crowd? It's foreigners like us when we go and watch a game.
Yeah, but it's more
Asian basketball fans. It's not just your local people from California.
Yeah,
but
but you
Man City have ruined the EPL. They've won 6 straight. Usually everyone says EPL is the most competitive league in the world. But now, if you look at the German league, they've had the equal amount of winners winning their league each year. They've become the Bayern of the EPL, which has made the league boring. No one wants to see, Man City get 100 points every year and win the league. Liverpool, what, 2 back-to-back 90-point seasons, can't win
I just think eventually, if this money's flowing in, eventually the whole league will be bought out.
Yeah, but it's like the F1 where there was no cap and then you had all these massive brands spending unlimited money and it was, your top dogs in Mercedes winning every Grand Prix to, hey, we're going to implement a salary cap and it's even the competition out a little bit more, but it's still...
I don't know, it's one to think about. I'd love to see some Arab money flow through into some domestic codes here, but I don't think it will happen.
Could you imagine Phil Gould's 5-year plan with Arab money?
Oh, mate, there'll be a centre of excellence at every single club. But look, I think that wraps us up for prime time this week. Check us out on socials at Jon-Bernard K and keep an eye out for our tips and picks this week at Picklebet. But that wraps us up. Stay safe and take it easy.